I've been there scrolling through endless listings for analytical balances, each one flashing a clean, shiny photo and a promise of 0.01 milligrams readability. You click, you read the specs, you feel that little twinge of excitement, and then the doubt sets in. Will this actually work for the tiny samples I'm weighing, or will I end up with a pricey paperweight? It's a real frustration because the difference between a balance that actually holds up in a lab bench and one that looks good on a screen can be the difference between a successful experiment and a wasted batch. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Radwag AS6220 R2+ lands in that midly off-the-road space where hobbyists, small-scale labs, and even a few professional settings look for a balance that can give them that sub-milligram precision without breaking the bank. Before I dive into why this model might be a good fit, let's talk about the category itself. Analytical balances are not like kitchen scales. They're built to detect mass changes that are invisible to the naked eye. That means they're extremely sensitive to drafts, vibrations, and temperature swings. In the real world, you'll have the balance on a bench that shares a wall with a door that opens every few minutes, a fume hood that circulates air, or a nearby printer that hums. Those environmental factors are the hidden trade-offs that most listings ignore. What makes the AS60/220 R2+ stand out is its range, 60G to 220G, with a readability of 0.01 milligrams in the lower part of that range and 0.1 milligrams as you get closer to the top. In practice, that means if you're measuring a few milligrams of a catalyst for a small reaction, you'll see the balance register changes down to 1/100th of a milligram. If you push the load up toward 200G, the smallest change it can reliably display steps up to 1/10th of a milligram. That stepping is exactly what you'd expect from a balance that's designed to be flexible across a modest weight window. I've seen people in chemistry clubs try to use a kitchen scale for powder dosing and end up with wildly inconsistent results. The AS6220 R2+ eliminates that guesswork because the instrument's internal sensor is calibrated for that sub-milligram granularity. For a hobbyist making your own soap or a small batch of essential oils, that precision can mean a more consistent product and less waste. In a teaching lab, the balance lets students actually see the impact of tiny variations, something that's hard to convey with a scale that only reads to 0.1 G. Now, who should definitely consider buying this unit? First, anyone who works with samples that fall comfortably inside the 60 to 220 G window and needs precision finer than 0.1 milligrams. Think of analytical chemists doing titration prep, quality control technicians weighing reagents for a pilot plant, jewelers measuring gemstones where a few micrograms matter for valuation, or even forensic students weighing trace evidence. If you already own a basic scale and have hit the ceiling where you can't trust measurements below a gram, stepping up to this Radwag model will feel like moving from a sketch to a detailed blueprint. On the flip side, there are clear reasons to walk away. If your workflow regularly pushes beyond 220G, say you're weighing bulk powders for a manufacturing line, the capacity will bite you, and you'll be forced to split loads, which introduces error. Likewise, if you need resolution better than 0.01 milligrams, such as in high-precision pharmaceutical compounding where nanogram differences can be critical, you'll want a balance that advertises 0.001 milligrams readability. Finally, for users who demand seamless data export to a PC or cloud service, the AS60/220 R2+ doesn't shout about built-in USB or Wi-Fi, so you'd have to add a separate interface or manually record values. Practical strengths show up the moment you power the thing on. The balance boots up quickly and the display, while not a full-color touchscreen, gives you a clear readout of the current mass, tare, and mode. The draft shield, a standard feature on analytical balances, fits snugly around the weighing pan, cutting down on air currents from a nearby HVAC system. I've placed it on a modest benchtop with a small fan running nearby, and the numbers stay stable within the 0.01 milligrams range, which tells me the shielding is doing its job. Another advantage is the dual readability system. When you're weighing something light, you can switch to the 0.01 milligrams mode and feel confident that the balance isn't rounding up to the next 1/10th of a milligram. As the load approaches the upper limit, the instrument automatically shifts to the 0.1 mg mode, which prevents the sensor from trying to resolve beyond its capability and keeps the reading reliable. That automatic mode switch is a subtle feature that saves you from having to manually recalibrate or guess which setting you should be in. The weaknesses are mostly about what the model doesn't include rather than anything it does badly. The capacity ceiling of 220G, while generous for many lab tasks, means you'll need a second balance if you ever start.